You know, with 3 minutes left here, Mr. Cosby, you touched on something we talked about the last time you were on about a year and a half ago. I said, would you ever return to the stage? And you said, if the audience wants it, you would like to do that. Do you believe now that maybe 2023 looks like a year you might be able to do that?
Yes. Yes, because there's so much fun to be had in this storytelling that I do.
It's the comeback that absolutely nobody asked for. So that was Bill Cosby, who joined the WGH Talk show in small town rural Ohio, where we can only assume nobody has received any news updates in 10 years, to announce his return to the stage in 2023. So besides the obvious fact that Cosby is a formerly convicted rapist who nobody should pay money to see, imagine paying money to listen to this man. He is literally so boring. We had to speed his audio up so that you could sit through it.
Mr. Bill Cosby, Mr. Cosby.
Mr. Spears.
How are you, my friend?
I am just full of Christmas cheer.
Well, that's what we want a few days after, so it's still with you.
Hey, listen, it's not going anywhere. Everybody's doing well in the young people are doing well in school, and it's interesting the kind of work they have to do, and how they talk about being stressed because of the work they have to do. And I said, but you sit down. You don't have to break any rocks. You don't have to drive nails on the railroad. And you sit down and you read, and then your professor helps to interpret what he or she has assigned you to read.
What the hell is he talking about? Like, I know he's old, but you're not so old that you didn't have school and instead had to work on the railroads or break rocks. My God. Okay, but there's more, and we're gonna get into that. So the radio host asked Cosby, "How are you?" and he responded with this bizarre 2-minute long rant about how children don't work in the railroads anymore. And you might be wondering if the radio host Scott Spears ever asked any hard-hitting questions like, how was being in prison for 3 years? What about the 5 new women who filed a suit against you this month? How do you sleep at night? But no, instead, Scott Spears opted to ask him this.
You know, Mr. Cosby, every Christmas, every holiday season, it seems, for many, many years now, the question comes up, do we really celebrate the true meaning of Christmas, or are we wrapped up in buying things, getting things, and stress ourselves to the point where we really don't enjoy the holiday? What's your feeling on Christmas in general?
Yeah. What is the meaning of Christmas? But he didn't ask any questions about this. Variety reported earlier this month, 5 women filed a new sexual assault lawsuit against NBC and Bill Cosby under a New York state law that temporarily suspends the statute of limitations for older sexual assault claims. The women allege that Cosby either raped them or forced them into sexual acts. Cosby's rep, Andrew Wyatt, called the lawsuit frivolous and said the 5 women were a part of a parade of accusers who had come forward between 2014 and 2016. Wyatt confirmed to Variety that the comedian is looking at spring to summer to start touring again. And you might remember that Cosby spent 3 years in prison and was released last June on a legal technicality. And that's not because he didn't do it. He did rape those women. 100% he did it, but he got off on this slight technicality. So here's some more information on that from the New York Times. The disgraced actor and comedian Bill Cosby walked free this week after 3 years in prison. when the Pennsylvania Supreme Court threw out his 2018 conviction on charges of drugging and sexually assaulting Andrea Constand in 2004 when she was a Temple University employee. In the trial, prosecutors used what Mr. Cosby had said in a previous deposition, his admission that in decades past he had given quaaludes to women in an effort to have sex with them, as evidence against him. The court ruled that prosecutors violated Mr. Cosby's rights by reneging on an apparent promise not to charge him. So, I mean, I find comfort in the fact that, I think he's lost a lot of his support. But I mean, he shouldn't be able to make a comeback. He shouldn't have gotten out of prison, honestly. But he definitely shouldn't be able to be making a comeback. And it's embarrassing that host didn't ask him any sort of, actual questions that would, actually be relevant to Bill Cosby, and instead just asked him, do you think that we don't have enough Christ in Christmas? Jackson, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, that was hilarious. He was like, did you worship the birth of sweet little baby Jesus on that summer night with the North Star? Well, I guess he's trying to get some, he's trying to be friendly with a guy who may call into a show more often. Now that's all that was. But Bill Cosby is one of the biggest ironies ever. My parents are older. My dad's in his 70s, and so he talks about, he's taught me a lot about Black America and a lot about just different types of people that he saw growing up. And he was talking about people saying that stuff about him way back in the day. Bill Cosby was on TV in an interview talking about some "Hello America, I dropped roofies in women's drinks." He said that but the biggest thing to me is his propensity to be like, Black people need to pull up your pants and don't curse and stop speaking like that. And hip hop and rap music is so bad, and yet you got all these women line after line after line accusing you. They can't all be lying. I mean, so even for people who want to say those women are lying, all of them, so it's just he's really a disgraced public figure, and he can't reverse that.
Yeah, and it's really frustrating to see those people who are really adamant that all those women are lying, despite the fact that he admitted to some of it. He admitted that he gave women quaaludes so that he could sleep with them, and he still has defenders. I think it's I just think it's disgusting, and I don't think that first of all, his comedy isn't relevant anymore, because you're right, he does do that, that whole, people need to bootstrap themselves out of where they are. If you just pulled up your pants and you turned your music down, then you wouldn't be facing this type of systemic racism. And it's this is not something that people are going to want to. It's not relevant to today. All right.
And are we moving on? Because I really
go ahead.
Oh no, yeah, I was just gonna say, and it also kind of reflects what we're seeing with Tory Lanez and Megan Thee Stallion. Mm-hmm. It's no matter how you want to slice and dice it, he pulled out a gun and started shooting at a woman. So it's what is he so little and small that he had to do that to defend himself? Tory Lanez has a history of being angry and stuff like that. So it's men have a tendency in this country, especially a huge portion of men, to defend men for the sake of men alone. Yeah. And that's all this is. That's all it is.